Hey, welcome back to God's Glory and Men's Real Stories. So glad you guys could join again. Hey, look, this community is unbelievably overwhelming how this community continues to grow. I'm so happy you guys could continue to join. I'm so happy you guys, even for my new listeners, I'm excited about what you guys get to experience today. But more importantly, maybe what you get to experience when you look back at some of the other stories and the conversations I've had. So, hey, sit down, get ready for a great conversation today. I hope that you can sit with this community, not only to feel God's love, but see God's glory in men's real stories. All right. So look, today on today's episode, as always, I have a special guest, and I'm always excited about every special guest because every conversation that I have, whether it be with a guy that I just met or a guy that I've known for years, I feel like they're all special. I feel like they're all truly a blessing of a gift of transparency, a gift of vulnerability, a gift of just their story on how they got to where they're at. And a lot of people, they understand and they see where a person may be sitting now, but they don't understand what it took to get there. They don't understand the situations where they were down in valleys instead of on the mountaintop where you may see a lot of them. So today on today's episode, I have a special guest who is the founder and CEO of The Writer's Game, a Charlotte-based publishing house. But he also wears many other hats, including but not limited to father, educator, and author of multiple books. But most recently, the book, The Writer's Game, The Business Behind Your Story. I'd like to welcome my brother, Cal S. King, to the show.
Brother Robert, man, it's a pleasure.
I
love the intro, by the way.
Did you? Awesome. You like how I just kind of like rolled out now?
I really do. I think out of all of the things, because I tell people this all the time, out of all of the things that people introduce me as, father is my most important topic.
Right.
Because I think that a lot of times we live off the professional titles, but the thing that I'm most proud about is being able to pour into my son.
Right.
And be able to watch him grow and transform through his life.
Right. That's awesome, and that is so true. And you know what? I want to deep dive into that because you've already gotten started. But I want you to tell my listeners a little bit, just to give them a quick bio about yourself, real quick.
Of course. So again, father. One of the biggest things that I say is vessel, because I don't want to say that I'm the CEO or I'm the founder of this, because today you may see this, but this is evergreen. So in 10 years, I may not be doing that very thing. A little bit about my background: from Atlanta, Georgia. I went to school at Alabama A&M University, ran track there, have a dual degree in finance and international business. And after school, I realized that I had a calling to be able to help people. So I started a company, Project Shine, a nonprofit that wanted to bridge a lot of the gaps within education, because what I've recognized is that our students at the time, and even still today, weren't getting exposed to career opportunities that could truly advance them to where they want to go, not where the system is pushing them to go.
Right.
So started off with that. Didn't have the success that I wanted to be able to have. So then I worked with Johnson & Johnson after school, ended up parting ways with them, came to Charlotte, North Carolina, and then that's when everything transformed. So I came here, and I tell this story all the time. I came here because my son at the time was one, had absolutely nothing. I was living with one of my friends on an air mattress in his extra bedroom with my 1-year-old son. And I remember that night that I looked over, and I still have pictures of this moment. I looked over with my son sound asleep on an air mattress that had a hole in it, and it was lopsided. And I said, no more. That next week, I went over to Queen City STEM School right here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I said, hey, I want to volunteer. I want to be able to work with your students. And from there, at the end of the year, I was the director of marketing. 2 years later, from there, I was the first and youngest director or assistant principal at the school as well. At that time, I had 5 books. We built after-school programs. We had educational enrichment centers. And from there, built a publishing company. All these different things came after that. So I think from that sacrifice of following God here to Charlotte has allowed me to help millions of people in the process.
Wow. I feel like you just gave me a mouthful, like right in the intro.
Yeah,
woo, where do I start? So I love how you started off saying that, it took you looking over at your son and realizing that, you know what? Enough's enough. I got to change the way I view what's going on right here, as far as like seeing him in this way. Because some people, they say, well, you know what? He looks comfortable. But at a certain point, you had to say to yourself, you know what? I think that it's time for me to go.
Of course.
And in going, it's not always as simple as like, I just went to the school the next day. I asked for a job and it just kicked off from there. I know there were a lot of steps. There may have been a lot of like, oh, wow. Okay. I know I wanted some changes for him, but like at what was the cost, and what is the cost that I'm going to have to do to get that? So tell me, I guess, expound upon what was that drive like when you first kind of looked over and you saw your son when you were sitting there in a place where it's like, okay, you know what? I'm trying to get started. I'm trying to kind of like move into a new city, move into uncomfortable situations, knowing that this is not how I want it to look, but this is not where it ends.
No, I recognize that the purpose that God had for me is bigger than the pain that I currently felt in that moment. My calling was bigger than my circumstance. And I think a lot of times men, women in general, people in general, battle with the lack of alignment. The lack of peace comes from the lack of alignment. And what I mean by that is you have this vision of who you want to be, who God desires for you to be. But when you look at all of your actions, your behaviors, your relationships, your environment, it's in complete dissonance to the person that you want to actually be. So in my head, I was successful. I was a college graduate. I was doing all these things. I was a budding entrepreneur. But your results are not in what you think. Your results are in the people that you're actually empowering. So when I look over at my son and I'm staying in an extra bedroom on an air mattress that has a hole, that's not success.
Right.
And if the cameras were on 24/7, yes, I can get up and I can speak and do all these things. But if the cameras were on and saw this moment, would they still be the same? Would they still have the level of empowerment when you were on stage? So I needed to get in alignment with what I actually wanted to do. My background, my parents, so I grew up 2-parent household. I was very fortunate, 2 amazing parents. But my mother, she got pregnant when she was 14 years old, never had a father, grew up South Jersey projects, and through that, didn't go to college, and now she's the VP at a $1 billion company today with no college degree. So I've seen how she's been able to prevail and be resilient. My father grew up one of 13, lost his mother when he was 7, never had a father, but I've seen how he's been able to prevail through his circumstance. So coming from that household of resiliency and grit and work ethic, there was no excuse for me to be sitting in complacency and comfortability and not allowing what has been gifted to me to be moved. When we talk about the parables of the talents, I had that one talent that I gave away. It was my ability to speak because of pride, because of ego. You can't multiply something that you don't plant into the ground.
Right.
So it was time for me to plant the seed so that something could harvest in time.
Oh, that's good. That's really good. That's really good. And you put so many different seeds into books that you wrote over time. And you know, I got your book, and I love how, like, when I first got your book, I was like, wow, I'm trying to digest as much of this before we actually sit down together. And I remember in the first chapter, I was like, yo, he's so right. Like everything he's saying, because every step you took in explaining how to get a book started, I had to take every last one of those steps just in getting this podcast started. And it's funny because I love how God put certain people in front of me, because I've heard that, hey, Rob, you know what? You should write a book. And I'm sometimes like, well, you know what? In the time that when God tells me it's time, then that's when I will move on that. But right now, this is the lane. This is the assignment he's giving me. And so I'm going to stay in my assignment. I'm going to stay in my alignment, as you said. And so, you know, as I started to read your book, I realized that everything you pinpointed, all the steps, Justin, as you were going through each one, about what you should look at from a book standpoint, how you should go about coming up with the audience, the target audience, the how you want to promote it. Everything was like, wow. He's so right. Like it's spot on. So anybody who's truly considering like writing a book, because you're right. I love how you say all of us have a story. And I just recently read a tweet where you said, you know what? Our story can be the handbook to somebody's survival.
There it is.
And so I would love for you to share, you know, more of your story, understand a little bit of not only like the importance of like the grit and the resilience that you've seen and that you've gone through, but sometimes what we a lot of people believe that we just woke up and we were extremely lucky and we realized what our talents were and we just kind of like jumped into it. And it's like, and so for some people who haven't realized what their talents are, they're just like, well, I don't have anything. I don't see anything special about myself. And so they're stuck down in that valley with nowhere to go, because they can't find a direction to say, this is what I need to hone into.
Of course.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people are stuck. And a little bit about my story. One, I believe that exposure empowers what you're supposed to what you're supposed to do in your life. And it talks about in scripture, faith without work is what? It's dead, right?
Yeah.
With me, I give credit to my parents a lot. They exposed me to so many things when I was a child. So many things, different programs, different, opportunities, jobs, all these different things. My pride and ego will not be the barrier for me building the life that God has for me. And what I mean by that is I've worked at Wendy's, I've worked at AMC movie theaters, I've worked at Lucky Brand jeans, I've worked at a warehouse at Volvo, I've worked at car dealerships, and all these different things taught me transferable skills that I can use as an entrepreneur.
Right.
As I'm building this six-figure company and then a 7-figure company, it's the same things that you learn in all of these other places. And I think a lot of people want the big opportunity, but they can't take care of the first one.
Right.
So for me, learning all of these things through educational programming, I'm going to college and doing different internships. It's really helped me understand what I don't want to do, what I do want to do, what I am actually gifted in, what are my talents, what, type of environment I want to be around, what makes me feel good. So I think in anything that before you can impact, you have to unpack.
Ooh.
Who am I, right? What do I like? What do I not like? What makes me happy? What brings me joy? And if you can align that with everything that you do, both professionally and personally, whether it's friendships, intimate relationships, whether it's professional relationships, and all of that can support and honor who you actually desire to be, that's the very catalyst for you to be able to be successful.
Right. But let's go. Okay, so let's take a deep dive into the unpack though, because a lot of times people think to themselves like, yeah, okay, he said all I have to do is unpack to impact. I like that. I unpack to impact. Yeah. But think about it though. A lot of times we make it seem like unpacking to understand who you are and what you like, not what the person you're dating likes, not what your parents told you should like. Unpacking is a lot harder than a lot of us try to make it seem, because we just say it like, hey, and I always talk about growth. I always talk about, hey, look, you got to get to your true authentic self.
Of course.
But in order to get to your true authentic self, sometimes that means that you have to do a lot of digging that is not always discussed about like what that may look like. And so it leaves people in the dark to say, but this is my authentic self.
Of course.
And this is what I like. And this is what I'm initially, I love this about myself, or I love that about myself. And so how do people get past a lot of that initial like surface level stuff that kind of keeps them, I would say, complacent or stagnant in where they're trying to go?
I'm going to say this, the depth that you're willing to go in your digging process will determine the height of your destiny that you reach. Right? So right there, I just want people to pause right there.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, let's just soak that up real quick again.
So what I mean by that, a lot of people in life, and me too, I'm not going to just put it out like me. I wanted to build a skyscraper on the foundation of a townhome. I wanted to go so high in the ground, but I wasn't willing to go deep into the causes of why I was causing pain to others.
Right.
One of my brothers, YP Thomas, shout out to him. He always says, because I don't like to take credit for quotes, he always says that you have to forgive yourself not only for what you've done, but also what you've caused. Because what you did caused a reaction.
Right.
And a lot of times we don't deal with the things that we caused, or we've forgiven ourselves or others for the things that were done, but we're not willing to deal with the things that were caused.
Right.
And what I mean by that is I had to unpack why I continue to keep going through these cycles in relationships, why I had to keep going through these cycles in women, why I had to keep going through these cycles in money problems, why I had to keep going through all of these cycles. What I recognize, though, is that the lack of discipline, how you do anything is how you do everything.
Right.
You were lying in women relationships, and that's why you ended up doing what you did, and you're not committed and you're not consistent. The real problem is that you lack integrity. You lack character. So let's dig a little deeper on why that question is. What is the story? This is a question for everybody that I want you to ask yourself. What is the story that best describes who you are today in your life? Like, if you could look back and trace back in your life, what is the story that best describes who you are today? And my question after that is that your story that you actually wrote for yourself? Or is the story that you've been living in your life based upon how your parents raised you, about how society exposed you, or about how you want to look, but you're not willing to deal with the things right now that are potentially impacting you negatively on the person that you desire to be.
Right.
So I had to unpack all of these things and ask these tough questions so that I could be the best version of who I desire to be.
Okay.
And anything that we want, before you reach the promise, you have to go through a process. And a lot of us in this trying to become anything, we think that it's going to be easy. The easy part is thinking, I want a Lamborghini. The easy part is thinking, hey, I want to go buy real estate. The easy part is thinking, hey, I want to just propose and be married.
Right.
The hard part is like, oh man, she doesn't, she gained a few pounds today. The hard part is like, hold on, your hair don't look the same that it looked last week when you had it made up, or dealing with emotions and all of these different things.
Right.
When you make a commitment, you also have to commit to the responsibilities that come with that commitment. Right. And a lot of times, men and women, we want all of these amazing dreams and visions, but we're not willing to go through the process of remaining committed to the responsibilities that are required as payment so that we can reach our promise.
Boy, you said a mouthful, and that's look. The beauty of this is that it's on a rewind. You can rewind that back to get that again. But so with that process, because I think that is so important, and a lot of people they want a instantaneous process. Mm-hmm. They want a fast process. Okay, they want to ask the question up front. Hey, look. So how long is this process going to take? Because most things come with like a timeline, and they don't realize that I was just saying this the other day, that a lot of processes are step by step by step.
Of course.
This process you speak of, I would compare it to almost like when you give a kid a crown and they start to color on a page, and you're like, what are you coloring? And it almost looks like they're connecting dots all over the page, but it's scribble. I would compare a lot of our healing or unpacking processes to look like that, in that it doesn't go in a straight line. It's going to be all over the place. And if I tell you that up front, are you going to still sit with that process and knowing that this isn't going to be a step-by-step process? I'm not going to be able to buy a manual or sit with somebody and they say, okay, hey, today, step B, we're going to go do this. Because even if you were to go, whether it be therapy, whether it be sharing, whatever, counseling, group therapy, whatever it may be, there are going to be days where that didn't really do much for me.
Of course.
But this piece right here, I needed. When we got to this chapter or this area of the book and we flipped back through and we went back to chapter 3 again, wow, that hurt.
I think that a lot of people, I'm going to tell a story really quickly.
Okay.
I'm going to give a good story and then I have another story that's not so powerful, right?
Okay.
When I was 14 years old, and it talks about processes. When I was 14 years old, I asked my parents to borrow the keys to the car to go to this party, this high school party. Obviously, they said, Kyle, no, it's not happening. But they went to a Maxwell concert that night. I knew they'd be gone for a few hours, so I took the keys anyway. So I drove to the party, picked up my friend, because you can't really do anything by yourself. You got to have somebody
you got to have an accomplice.
To tell the story.
Right.
So we got to the party, had a great time, came back, dropped him off, and I pulled back into the driveway. I parked the car right back where my parents had it. I thought I hit the brake. I hit the gas, ran straight through the closed garage door. But here's the crazy part. So I ran into the house. Got a towel, wiped down the steering wheel, called the cops, told them that somebody stole the car and ran it back into the house. Cops get there. This is a true story. Cops get there. They pretty much they're getting ready to bring like the forensics team out. The woman cop was pretty much saying, if you're lying, you can get charged for falsifying the police report. I ended up telling the truth. My parents, that was another conversation. What happened when I got home?
Yeah.
What I tell people all the time when I tell this story in speeches is that a lot of people are crashing their dreams. A lot of people are making accidents because they're driving cars that they're not ready to drive. Before you're able, when we think about the driving process and driving to our destiny, right? When we first get into a car from the hospital when we're born, where are we? In the back seat, in the car seat.
Right.
Then it takes a process. We have to get a certain level of what? Weight.
Right.
Before we can get in what? A booster seat.
Right. Oh, yeah, the booster seat. Right.
Then we have to then have more weight before the booster seat comes off, and we have to then what? Have a level of height. Right?
Yeah.
So we have to add things to us. Those things are the experiences. Those things are the things that we learn on this process of elevation, right?
Right.
So then we sit in the back seat. But you know that moment when your parents are able to say, let me sit in the front seat. You're battling to get in the front seat. But when you get in the front seat, you go through your process. You're learning. And you finally have to do what? You have to take your test to do what? Get your permit.
Yeah.
But what did you have to do, though? See, a lot of people think that you're going to be able to graduate without taking your what?
Permit. Or you got to graduate without taking that end-of-year exam.
That test.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So then you get your permit, but when you first get your permit and your driver's license, what do you have on it? Provisionals.
Right.
So there's steps, there's requirements, there's all of these different things, right? So then you get the provisionals off once you have what? Proven for a year that you can do this without assistance, without somebody guiding you. That's the same thing in life. Anybody listening right now, there's steps to everything.
Right.
There's tests that you're going to have to go through. There's somebody that's going to have a requirement. There's in Rome, you have to do what Romans do. You can't just go into a restaurant and stand on the table and order your food at the top of your lungs. You can't. And anything in life, you have to respect the level of success or respect the environments in which you are in so that you could be able to multiply or duplicate that same level of success.
Right.
All of these things are put in place to protect you. I think that a lot of times we're trying to fast track processes, and when we fast track processes, we end up being unprotected and unsafe, and now we're wrecking the very dreams and callings that God put onto our lives.
Right.
So that's one story that helps me realize that, look, you have to be prepared for this journey of success, not just motivated on this journey of success.
That was a good, that was really good. And I love how you broke that down, because you're right. That kind of gives you now a visual as you understand each part of the I love that. So what would you say, where would you say you are in your process right now? What is Kyle King inspiring to want to do next? Where are you at in your current situation?
I think that, what do I aspire to do next? So I'm in the process of positioning my company to be sold. I think that is one of the biggest things that I would say that I've accomplished in business, being able to systemize and build a strong organization enough to be valued at a number that we see as valuable, to be sold. And then our next step is we're building an affordable housing community south of Greensboro, North Carolina, 75 acres, built out of container home properties. This is going to be an exclusive community for single fathers. The goal of this book this year is we're hoping and planning to sell 40,000 copies of our book, because we want to be able to magnify the voice and monetize people's messages as well, especially of Black voices or people of color, because historically people of color don't have those opportunities, especially with big publishing houses, to have their voices, their experiences, their knowledge, and their culture told in a very educational, intellectual, and an impactful way, where we get to control the narrative rather than society can control the narrative.
Right.
Planning for a newborn as well.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Woo, wow.
Planning for a newborn. I think that's something that's I've recognized that is life changing, because I've been 7 years out of the game right now.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So it's definitely life changing. But outside of business and outside of personal things like that, I am trying to give and surrender myself under God. I think that a lot of the different things that I've done in my life, and what I've talked about often, is that, I did everything that I needed to do in life. I went to college, I got the degree, I got the girl, I had the kid, I built the house, I built the business, I got the corporate job, I built the investments and all these things. And what I've recognized, and I don't want people to miss this, what I recognize as I built my life of success, to society, I look like a success. But to me, deep down, I recognized that I was out of alignment in so many different seasons of my life, and it manifested misery. And there's been so many seasons where that misery poured over into relationships and, heartbreak. That misery poured over into, now you're continuing the same generational cycles of lack of financial literacy. That misery poured over into all these different areas where you don't have a sense of peace and joy as you move through the storms,
right? Because
you're out of alignment. Yes, you've built this company, but at the cost of what?
Right.
So I am now operating from a place of, I'm choosing peace and purpose over profit.
Right.
Because my profit comes from a different place that can't be paid in physical dollars.
Right.
So I'm trying to empower as many people that I can this year. Our goal is to give away $100,000 to different organizations, different companies, different people. And obviously my mission is to be able to help 100,000 fathers this year as well.
That's awesome. Yeah. Hey, look, if nobody else gets nothing from this, we can mic drop this, because at this point, I've gotten a lot. He just spoke to me. Like, I felt like you just told my story and so many other men's stories of that rise to achieve it all, and then realize I'm up here, I'm on the mountaintop, I got everything, and I still feel empty.
Exactly.
And I feel extremely unfulfilled.
Exactly.
And I feel almost lost right now, and it's like, well, what else is there? Like, this, they told me this would be great, and I'm here, and I'm now just feeling like,
because we lust over legacy, we lust over this false idea of legacy, and I'm gonna probably shake the table really quickly. Right?
Ooh, do it. Let's go.
Your name will not be remembered forever. And, I had this idea in my head that, I want to build something that's going to last forever, and I want to be remembered forever, and all these different things. There will be a time where you're not. There will be a time where we pass, and generations later, 100 years or 1,000 or 2,000 years from this moment, those videos won't be watched. Those books won't be read.
Right.
So we have to find a way to be able to live in the present. So that's why now my focus is being able to lead my family in Christ, right? A lot of times we prepare our kids for college. We prepare our kids for marriage. We prepare our kids for football and basketball, all of these different things.
Right.
But how are we preparing our kids for eternity, right? If you go into a high school classroom right now and ask the kids, what do I want to be? They say a doctor, an engineer, all of these things.
Right.
Nobody's saying integral. Nobody's saying honest. Nobody's saying, loving. Nobody's saying kind. Nobody's saying genuine, right? So when I think about the process and the reason, I always get this question, what is the reason why you write all these books? I've written 7, well, this is my 8th book at this point.
Okay.
Every book that I've written closes a chapter in my life. Once I write the book, the chapter is closed. This book is being written at a time when we're in the position of selling the company. So now the chapter is getting ready to be closed. But now if I died today, my son has a roadmap in text form forever on what to follow when I was in high school, college, when I was going through that relationship, when I was working in the educational system, when I was navigating that space, when I was preparing for marriage, when I built this successful company, all of these different things.
Right.
Your story can be written, and you don't have to be so focused on this idea of legacy that you forget the right now.
Right.
I don't want to be $100 million man and loved by the people, but not where my own family doesn't know me.
Right.
Or my kids don't adore me.
Right.
So anybody listening right now, I live by 5 things. And a mentor of mine years ago asked, like, Kyle, if you could have any 5 things, what would those 5 things be? Now, after the superficial things, I really broke down a list of 5 things. Number 1 is that I want to, we're all going to die one day.
Right.
And I want to be known by people in the present as somebody that was loving, kind, a man that was honorable, integral, a good husband, an amazing father, and a man that served God and served the community with all that he had. Number 2 is I want to be able to be in a marriage one day that I am just amazingly in love with the person that I'm with. I think that love has lost our households. Love has lost our relationships. It's left our relationships. And we're marrying because of circumstance and because of financial gain rather than being able to look at that person. And no matter what, regardless of the number in your bank account, you're with that person for the right reasons.
Right.
Number 3 is that I want to build and launch an educational technology that helps 10 million kids around the world and to win a Nobel Peace Prize for it. Number 4 is one of my books, and that's why I keep writing and keep writing. I want to win a Pulitzer Prize winning book. I believe there's been 2 or 3 authors on the Pulitzer Prize winning book of color, on that list of color, and I want to be one of the top 10 that wrote a Pulitzer Prize winning book. And then number 5 is my affordable housing community. So everything that I do, and this is what I talk about alignment. Everything that I do aligns with those 5 things. I don't come on a podcast that can't help me with those 5 things.
Right.
I can't, take on opportunities that don't help me with those 5 things. I can't have people in my life that don't contribute to those 5 things. All of those 5 things. I have to be integral. I have to be prepared for marriage. That means I have to have relationships that can, prepare me for that. I have to have brothers that are potentially married or just good men of faith that we can do those things rather than club.
Right.
So when you look at your top 5 list, does it align with your activity, your behavior, and your choices over the last few weeks?
Right.
And if it doesn't, now you can really reverse engineer what you need to do so that you can get closer to what you want in life.
Right. That's dope. And you're so right. I mean, like everything you just, you're right. You almost have to look at both sides of the coin. Like, okay, this is what I've written all of these down. Now I'm looking at where I'm about to go, what I'm about to do, who I'm about to do it with. And if they don't align, you're right. That was good. Somebody's going to steal that. I'm letting you know. One of these lists is going to be like, he's right. I have to get a list. And everybody should have a list. But sometimes we lose track of our list outside of our fleshly pleasures.
There it is.
Of what we want to do aside from, oh, yeah, that can wait. Because this is always calling. And I know I'm guilty of it. Been there. And we run to those momentary pleasures just to say, oh, okay. All right. Wait a minute. Where's that list at again?
Exactly.
And we get caught up going ping-ponging back and forth, but not actually ever making that connection, that alignment with those two. So that was really good.
As you become successful, distractions are disguised in the form of opportunity, right? Mm-hmm. On your route to success, distractions aren't like car wrecks and, Instagram and social media. Distractions are opportunities. And if you don't have sober mind, and it says in the scripture, a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. That's one of my favorite scriptures. Now, I've been double-minded, triple-minded, quadruple-minded a lot,
right?
But I see the effects.
Right.
But if you have sober mind and you are clear, and you have this list, like on my phone, a brother said it a few weeks ago. It says, your faith must be the prototype for your family. When he said that, I was like, oh my God. I literally went on Canva while we had a men's huddle, while the men's huddle was still going on. And I said, that is something that I want to live by. And I have to have it in front of me. Right. Every time I open my phone, your faith is a prototype for your family. Right. But do we look at our list on a daily basis? As much as we check our phones and we go on Netflix and we play music and we check the game scores, we never check our legacy list and our purpose list. Right. And it's a problem, right? And it gets us so distracted from what we're supposed to do. But on this journey, on this yellow brick road of trying to be successful, you're going to get financial opportunities. You're going to get job opportunities. You're going to get women and men. And those aren't going to be women and men that ain't got nothing.
Right.
As you grow, the people grow around you. Yes. And then it even gets harder. So if you're not planted like a tree and have values that are immovable before you start your process, you're going to lose.
Right.
I had all of it. I had it all. And it's interesting because we have a certain level of favor on us even when we don't deserve it.
Ooh.
Even when we don't deserve it.
That's so true.
And that just shows the power and the grace and mercy of God, because I've gotten so much and thought it was a blessing, but it was a curse.
Right.
And it took that things being stripped from me and me almost bankrupting my company, me losing the love of my life, me going through all of these different processes, me going through depression and anxiety and having suicidal thoughts, me looking in the mirror and not understanding who I was and looking at somebody in the mirror and thinking, like, who is this person?
Right.
I had to go through the stripping in that process of losing it all so that I can understand that, God, this is how you need me to be. Right. So anybody listening right now, it's not about the money. It's not about the cars. It's not about the things that make you feel good in the temporary moments. I need you to commit to the things that make you feel peaceful, even when it doesn't look peaceful.
Right.
I need you to find joy, even when there's nothing visually to even have joy in.
Right.
There's been times in my life, even right now, like, I have a lot, but even if I lost it all, there's still a level of joy and peace and thankfulness and gratitude that I feel because I did the work. You have to have values that are immovable, like a tree.
Right. No, that would, man. Wow, you came with it. What? She's right. You shook this table, man. Like, what else we gonna talk about after that? Go. Like, that was solid. So you know what? I have to say this now because everybody's listening to your story right now. Mm-hmm. They're listening to you pour out what you've learned along the journey. But the thing is, there are so many people that have a story in them that is yet to be written, and that's where it throws it right back into your court because you understand the importance of why that legacy and that blueprint needs to be written. Even if nothing else, just for your kids. I left it in a journal in my bedside table for you to one day look at and be able to follow this, even if I didn't get all the way to home plate. I got the third base, and I need you to run home with it. I gave you as much as I knew. I gave you and we always talk about generational cycles, generational trauma, generational breaking that generational curse. And sometimes when we talk about curses, sometimes those can only take us so far. But when we have that information, because I think I heard the other day, it's not so much that we can't go any further. We just lack the desire to go and get the information to go further. And so honestly, it's a matter of us going to get that knowledge, because without that knowledge, then we're stuck in place wondering why nobody gave us a shot. Right?
The same information that can keep you, look, the same information or the same tool that you're gaining information from that is keeping you in that same circumstance is the same information or the tool that information can make you millions of dollars. What I mean by that. The same tool of a cell phone that you go on Instagram and scroll all day long and make no money from, and you're distracted and you recognize that you spent 3 hours today and 21 hours during the week scrolling, is the same tool that you can use to share information or follow the right people or go to YouTube and learn something or go to Google and learn something. And that same tool you can use to go make millions from.
Right.
Literally the same tool. And I think information is endless today. And I'm going to come back to this. If you want to do something in life, it is as easy as it's ever been today. We don't live in the age that our parents lived in, where they had the phone book systems. They had to have real relationships with real people, or the day and age where networking events were a thing, where you actually had to go to a networking event to meet someone, go 3-4, stages down the road, and then you build this relationship. We live in the day and age where you can come up with an idea. You can launch it publicly on a free trial. You can launch it publicly, have people opt in and pay for it, then go back and build the thing that they paid for on a wait list, and then what? Make the money, and then actually hire a videographer team to actually go deliver it at a high level.
Right.
Anything that you want, you have to be resourceful, you have to be creative, but you have to take action. There's somebody right now, and I don't know, I just feel it. There's somebody right now that's going to be listening to this, that has all of the information, but your season of information needs to stop. I'm going to say this. I stopped going to conferences, and the reason why is because I recognize that the information gap needs to stop, and now it's time for implementation. So what I want you to do, and this takes, again, reflection and unpacking. What are the 3 things in your life, gaps, barriers, bottlenecks, that are stopping you from getting to your goal? So if you have a goal, just set one goal. Don't set 25 goals. Set one goal. I want to make $100,000 this year. What are the 3 reasons why you believe you have not done it, or cannot do it, or are not doing it right now? Write down 3 reasons. Those are your bottlenecks. When you think of those 3 reasons, how can you create solutions for those 3 reasons? Now, on a daily basis, as a part of a champion's checklist is what I call it. Every single day, you need to commit to activity for 30 minutes to do those things. One of the things that I set out this year, I want to read 12 books. I want to read a book a month, right? Every day I have to be committed to reading 20 pages in that book so that by the end of the year I can commit to that. But so often we're trying to read that book in a day, we get burnt out, and then 3 weeks later we're now 3 weeks behind.
Right. So and got nothing out of it.
Nothing. So everybody, I want you to take action. I want you to stop focusing on more information and implement what you already have. Then once you implement it, then go to the next thing, identify what are the 3 next problems now, and then just continue to move forward and forward and forward.
Right, so, right. And look, I gotta throw this one in there so you can speak to those perfectionists that are holding on to ideas that they're wanting to make sure it looks perfect. They're waiting for it, because I was that guy too.
And me too. Don't let perfection be the paralyzing trait that stops your ability to get to your purpose.
Right.
Perfectionism is your paralysis.
Ooh.
Like, perfectionism is your paralysis, in my opinion. Like, it keeps you stuck in this idea of that it's not good enough, where you have to really unpack that, and you really think you're not good enough.
Right. Ooh, yes.
Like,
because you're right. It bleeds over there.
It bleeds over. So, no, this is good enough. This is good enough.
Right.
Like, I want you to say that. This is good enough.
Right.
Like, it's fine for right now. It'll never be where it needs to be. And this is what I tell people in the book process, right? I get the question all the time. You know, when do I know the book is over? Like, I just want to keep writing and keep writing and keep writing. You know the book is over when you have reached the initial goal that your audience wants to achieve. I'm going to say this. Your book isn't about you. Your vision isn't about you. Your goal and your journey isn't about you. It's about serving other people under God's kingdom, right? So in the book process, let me just give this example. The first step is to be able to identify your goals, your impact-related goals, your income-related goals. What that means is, where do I want to make a difference, or who do I want to make a difference in their lives, and how do I want to make dollars? Now, based upon those things, well, who do I need to work with to be able to do those things? So now you have an audience. When you understand your audience, when you understand that thing that you're going after, what are the pain points and challenges that you want to experience or help with? What are the desires and achievements? What are the frequently asked questions in that thing? All right, in that thing. I think about that with life. What are the pain points and the challenges? Oftentimes, our calling is attached to the thing that brings us the most pain, or the thing that pisses us off or frustrates us the most. My thing is single fathers. Like, I hate not seeing somebody like you and your son. That I hate not seeing it. I hate not seeing fathers take care of their children. I hate seeing fathers, and I've worked in the educational system. It's unacceptable, and there's no excuse for it at all. So that's my thing. So I'm on a mission to be able to operate in that space, but I have to use my gift to do that in that space.
Have you ever heard this though? And I love how you just said that. I think it was Darius Daniel said, you know what? God gives us a unique agitation to the things that bother us that nobody else is bothered by, because he gave you that unique agitation because he desires that you fix that.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what you just spoke to, because it's the same for everybody. Everybody has a unique agitation that just drives me crazy, that there's that thing on the wall, or there's those things on the ceiling, or this doesn't ever get cleaned enough. Okay, so if it bothers you enough, then do something about it.
Boom.
Do something about it.
And that's it. So take action. And sometimes, right, we think taking action is like, oh, I need to go to school. I need to do this. No, taking action for me last year was just planning an event for 30 men to come together and have a dad and me luncheon where we're talking about fatherhood. Taking action is maybe making a post about fatherhood. Taking action is maybe reading a book about fatherhood. Taking action is maybe starting a podcast about fatherhood.
Right.
What can you do today with the resources that you already have?
Right. Because all you have is all you need.
That's it. And then over time, you will have the resources that you need.
Exactly.
But for you not starting, that's the problem.
Yeah, no. And you're right. And I know that I can say it was my problem for a second. And I love how a mentor of mine one time said, you know, the thing is you're sitting there with the boy, with the raft right now, and there's a person out there drowning, and you're sitting there like, hey, well, look, wait, I got to blow it all the way up. I got to make sure it passed the test. He's like, no, but that person needs to be saved. You need to throw it out to him. I don't care if it's not perfect. I don't care if it's not blown up all the way. You need to throw that raft out to them, because they need to be saved with what you have. And yeah, at that point, he kicked me out the door, and I was like, all right, well, we're going to start this podcast however it's going to look. Say less. And so many people need to realize that, because you're right. That perfection or my vision will not allow me to put this out this way. But sometimes God is like, I gave you a long-term vision. Right now, I need you to get started with what I gave you. And when you do the most with the little I've given you, watch how I increase that over time to where it aligns with the vision I gave you over time.
Oh, man. So anybody listening right now, the process is not going to be easy. Okay. Like once you start, the process isn't going to be easy. It's kind of like giving birth. So when my first son was being born, I do
know men listen to this, right?
No,
so you said,
I know, okay. So when my first son was being born, I was tired of the baby showering. I was tired of the doctor's appointments. I was tired of like the all of the mess, right? I was just ready for the delivery,
right?
So when I got the call, that she was going into labor, I was so excited. I left the gym at the time. I was on the way to the hospital. And about 45 minutes before I got to the hospital, I got the call from her mom and said he didn't make it. And it was one of those moments where still to this day I feel it, because even when I got there, I had to watch her give birth to a lifeless child. And the strength of a woman being able to give birth to a lifeless child and holding my first son with no heartbeat was a moment that I'll never forget. Anybody listening right now, your process, you may be excited. You may be ready to give birth to that thing. You may be ready to go to the next level. You may be ready to make it happen. But even if it doesn't work out, you have to have the faith and you have to have the values that are immovable for you to keep going. And that's what I've learned on my journey. Because that moment, I didn't want to have children anymore. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to go through that process. And even right now, like, I don't like, it's hard to think of, like, when my son now was born, it's like you're so scared through that process.
Right.
It's kind of like a kid that, you know, falls on his bike and doesn't want to ride the bike anymore. I need you to keep going.
Right.
Whoever's listening to this right now, you may have lost money, you may have lost a relationship, but don't give up on love.
Right.
You may have lost out on business, but don't give up on those ideas, because you have something that is creative, and you have something that is innovative, and I declare and I decree that what you have in you is enough right now.
Yes.
And all of the things that you have been through are significant as a part of your yellow brick road towards your success.
Right. No, I receive it, and I hope they do too, because that's real, and you're so right, because we do get stuck in that place of fear where it's like, I'll never go back down. I don't want to do that again. Exactly. I even recognize how, like, my kids want a dog. And ever since, I know my kids have been wanting a dog, and I'm sure you laugh because yours. Why? Yeah,
don't do it.
And listen. This is what's paralyzed me from getting a dog. It's because I had a dog a long time ago, and I went through the same thing where I lost that dog, and it tore me up to the point where I never wanted to attach to something like a dog again, to where it would break my heart. And even to this day, I can recognize through your story, like, wow, you know, as much as that may seem like, oh, dude, I mean, it's a dog. Yeah, but you got to understand, it's a fear that I've held on to that's kept joy away from maybe my kids, of them experiencing that. And even though everything in me is like, yeah, but it ain't about that, bro. They're not going to clean up for this dog. They're not going to take care of the dog. They're not going to walk the dog. You're going to be stuck. But it's a thing of, like, it held me captive to the fear that I don't want to experience that again. I don't want to go back through that again. And that's how a lot of us get stuck and lost in that. I don't want to go back through that again. I've experienced that, and that's holding me to where, you know what? No, I just don't like dogs. No, it's not that you don't like dogs. It's not that you don't want to go back and deal with that hurt in some cases. And even if you do deal with the hurt, do you move past it to say, you know what, we're going to try this again?
Let me speak to somebody real fast.
Okay.
Somebody else's destiny is attached to your obedience. Somebody else's destiny is attached to your obedience. When I talked about your values have to be immovable like a tree, the tree's purpose and the fruit that the tree bears is what? Is not for the tree.
Right.
It's for other people.
Right.
And it talks about that in scripture in a lot.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm right with you.
But when you think about, if the tree is moving from place to place and everywhere, the tree is not going to be able to have roots in the ground that allows it to be healthy enough to bear fruit.
Right.
Because you're not obedient to the calling that is put on your life. Because you are not in alignment with the calling that is put in your life, because your values are all over the place, because your relationships are all over the place, because your visions are all over the place, and because you're not stable and focused in the area that you need to be focused, is the very reason that somebody else won't be successful.
Oh.
Because if you're in alignment, who are the people that God called you to go save? Because you're not in alignment, those people won't be saved. And then those people that they were supposed to save won't be saved. So who really are you affecting? It's unacceptable.
Right.
So when we take away this pride and ego and this attachment to our success is about us, it's not. Your success is about help someone else be successful.
Right.
And if we allow ourselves to be selfless in this pursuit of success, we will be successful.
Right. Because you're going, and I love how you pointed out, understand, a lot of times other people's success, a lot of other people's freedom, a lot of people, it's tied into you. And so without you doing what you're supposed to do, whether it be writing a book, whether it be going to get that job, whether it be saying, hey, suck your pride up and go and forgive that person.
Exactly.
Go and reach back out to that person. You're right. Things won't happen. So with that said, and I don't know where you're at right now. I will say that is why it is so important that if after hearing all that, you don't see the need to want to put to want to say, and I don't know how they can go about getting this book, because of course I want to make sure I put the information in the bio of not only the YouTube, but also in the Apple Podcasts and Spotify. But understanding the importance of your story, because I've realized that eventually I've got to put my story down. But I noticed that also, whether I put my story in a book or whether I put it out on a podcast, my story had to be put on wax. And I see the importance of getting it out there, putting it to where, even if my son has to go back and, thank God this is not on DVD or anything like that, something that's going to eventually get to the point where, well, I don't know why we're going to listen to that, but being able to listen to what I've said, the things that I've been through. I've been through enough to where I don't want him to go through that. This is not we walk 5 miles to the bus stop, so should you. Exactly. No, they shouldn't have to walk 5 miles. Like you walk 5 miles, so they don't have to walk 5 miles. And not to say they're not going to go through their own struggles, but understand their struggles are going to look different. Exactly. They're going to have to experience their own struggles. They shouldn't have to go through yours to get to their own.
I'm gonna talk to somebody. I'm gonna talk to you right now.
Actually, all right, okay.
If you lost your voice today, what have you built that can speak for you for generations? The same thing that we pour out to people, the advice that we give, the podcast, the questions that we ask, the advice that we give to our kids, the love that we share for people, all of those different things. If we lost our God-given ability to speak, check this out. If we lost our ability to think, how could we still use our mind to empower people? If we got brain cancer tomorrow, how could we do it? If we had Alzheimer's tomorrow, how could we do it? That's why it's so important to put your story down on paper.
I dig it.
Because the videos one day may not be here.
I dig it.
The voice and the mentorship and the recommendations that you give and all those things, they may not be here. But that literature, that text form, that thing that you can hold, that thing that you could pass down from generation to generation. We talk about generational wealth and passing down investments.
Right.
But why aren't we passing down blueprints through information?
There it is.
It talks about, there's a statistic that says, I think 80% of people that pass down wealth by 3 generations, they're gonna lose it all.
Yep.
But what if you pass down the blueprint instead of just pass down the money? What if you pass down the blueprint instead of just passing down the house? Now I have the blueprint on how to build the house, not just the house.
But I'll extend that. I mean, like, even when it comes to like money, wealth, but also like love, direction, when it comes to like navigating how you navigate your family. Because I mean, like money is a great tool, but without direction on how to be a great father and a husband, like you'll have all the money in the world and it's like, yeah, but I lost it all, but I got this though, so I can maybe go I just want to like hit all these points, because I tell people you can plug in what you're looking for in there. It's plug or play, but regardless, the process, the direction, it's all the same. It's all the same. It's all, whether your books on how to make it in life, or whether your books on navigating blended families, one of the topics that I've talked about here, whether it's navigating how to raise a son when you've never had a father. Because there's so many of us that are just going off a blueprint of what we saw on the Cosby Show. That's it. And we only got a little bit of it. It's like, okay, well, like once the rolling credits, I don't know what they did when it was time to go to bed. Like, so like there's so many stories in different men and women that, you're right, need to be told. And I'll probably say it here first. Whenever I'm ready, I'm going to come looking for you. Sure. I mean, matter of fact, I plan to keep a relationship with you where I can constantly just kind of like start writing chapter after chapter slowly, and maybe one of these days when God said it's time, I'll roll it out. But yeah, no, I look forward to it, and I would definitely tell all my listeners to tap in with my brother Cal S. King, because he definitely has created the blueprint and a formula for you to be able to truly, I know a lot of people are like, yeah, but I don't know how to write a book. I don't know how I would go about doing it. Listen to me. I read the first chapter, and I'm telling you, like, even in the first chapter, he's dropping so many gems, like he just dropped on this show today, that is going to make you feel empowered to say, oh, okay, this isn't going to be easy, but I at least feel like I have somebody with me holding my hand and saying, hey, I got you. Let's do this. And so I appreciate you coming here today, brother. I appreciate your time. I appreciate the gift and you being aligned to be able to provide this gift, because like you said, if it wasn't for you being aligned with what God called you into and being obedient, then we would have to find this information somewhere else, or maybe not at all. So I appreciate what you've done, not only with this book, but the other goals and the other things you're inspiring to do, because I know that God has plans for you to do great things, not just in this season, but in future seasons, and not just for you, but for your family, for your son, for your lady, and so I'm excited about watching his journey through you. I'm excited about seeing what he's going to do through this book in so many different areas. I'm gonna make sure I love to give my guests the last word, the last imparting word, whatever you may want to say, even if it's just a prayer. I mean, I like to give it to you.
For sure. Something that's been on my heart a lot. It says in Philippians chapter 4 verses 6, be anxious with nothing. Be anxious with nothing, and through thanksgiving, through laboring. And not to quote the whole scripture, but it talks about through this process of not being anxious and trusting God and being thankful and giving things to him, you will experience the peace of God. You will experience the peace of God. It says in Matthew's chapter 24, I believe, verses 10, it talks about how Jesus is sent into the wilderness and he was tempted by the Spirit.
Yeah.
Or tempted by the devil.
Yeah.
But it says tempted by the Spirit. And through the devil trying to tempt Jesus right after his fast, Jesus responds in every moment. He says 3 words: it is written. And then communicates what God wrote in scripture.
Come on now.
And has a level of confidence and belief. But check this out. This is what people miss, though. Jesus responded with the word, which is God. But if we're unable to know the word, which is God, we're unable to respond with it in situations.
There you go.
Just like we have muscle memory and a lot of the different things that we do when we're training as athletes, you have to have a level of soul memory when you're training for success. For when things come up, you are not tempted, you are not distracted, you are not put off course or moved out of the place that you should be. And you're able to move with the word of God. Be anxious with nothing, be thankful and give it all to him. And you will experience the peace and prosperity that God already has waiting for you.
That's real good. Ooh, and that's so real. You're so right about that. And I look, listen to me. I hope you took notes and maybe even highlighted that, because that's a good fallback on scripture. Matter of fact, I was just looking it up and I was like, yeah, what he's talking about, I got a lot of that highlighted because it's so right. And I love how you pointed out, like, it is written. And he said that every time. Yeah. So yes, hey, listen to me. This is incredible, bro. This is incredible. And I really appreciate you coming out today. I'm going to make sure I plug you all with all of his information, from his book to his website, to his Instagram page, so I can make sure that you can lock in to see what he's doing and follow him, so you can continue to get these gems, because he drops these things regularly and I love to pick them up. So definitely tap in with him. I appreciate everybody for tuning in today. This was a lot to unpack. So you're probably going to have to listen to this more than once, or stop, pause, take note, and come back. That's me. I'm the note taker. Like, okay, like I didn't even have to pay for this conference. This was free on YouTube. So thank you so much, man. For sure. I thank all my listeners for coming, for sitting down and just truly being able to take the time out to really dig deep and dive in with us today. I hope that this blessed you as always. I hope that you, like I said, I hope that you felt God's love and saw God's glory through my brother's story here today, through his testimony, through his walks in life. And he's even put it down in a book, in multiple books. So definitely check out The Writer's Game. I want to thank my son for helping, put the what you're viewing and the sound and all together for me today. And as always, I pray you guys are blessed and continue to move forward and definitely continue to come back and sit with us. All right. You guys be blessed.
Hey, we appreciate you listening today and hope that if you enjoyed the conversation and stories, you will subscribe and listen to past and future content. Feel free to comment, as we would love to read your comments and pray over all of our listeners. Also, please follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook at God's Glory and Men's Stories.
We understand as men how the thought of even facing your own story and the pain and hurt that come with that is a challenging task. But we don't want you to feel like you are all alone, because you are not. God has not forgotten you or left your side, and he loves you no matter what you have done. Your healing is important to him, and we want you to have these free resources that already exist if you're considering giving up or need someone to talk to. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline number is 1-800-273-8255. If you need support but are not in crisis, consider reaching out to a warm line if you need to talk to someone. Speaking to someone on these calls is typically free and confidential and run by people who understand what it's like to struggle with mental health. Find a local number by going to warmline.org.